Hey guys, so today I'm going to talk to you about how I got into the Disney College program on my first try. So, first of all, really quick disclaimer. Obviously, I'm representing my own views and what worked for me. I am not some sort of Disney representative or anything like that. I'm just telling you what works in my experience, and if any of my tips can help you out, that would be great. That being said, no one knows, watch all the videos you want, listen to any alumni you want. No one other than the recruiters know what Disney is actually doing when they get those applications. So no one else knows for sure what they're looking at. We all have guesses based on what has worked for us and worked for many other people. So just know that there's no way to guarantee yourself getting in. There could be two people that apply with the same application and one could get in and one could get stuck and applied. There's no way of guaranteeing that, unfortunately. It's kind of just a weird luck. There have been people that got in with no work experience and people that didn't get in with 5 different ones. So just know that. And I know that really sucks to hear because it's then what can I do? There's still things that you can do to help your chances for sure. But I'm just saying that for the first round of applications, it's very much a hard thing to know for sure if you're going to get in or not, or what they're looking at. That being said, I will tell you guys what worked for me and what I recommend, because I was not stuck and apply at all. So maybe I can be of some help. I don't know. I'm just trying to give you guys my tips. I'm not trying to come off as standoffish or anything like that. So if I do come off like that, I'm really sorry. That is not my goal at all. I just did a lot of research before I got in, and honestly, I don't think I would have gotten in without it. So I just wanted to help pass along tips that I haven't seen in other videos. I have some tips that you'll see in all the videos, and I have a few of my own as well. So that being said, the first thing I recommend is joining Facebook groups. There are so many DCP Facebook groups that have alumni in them and have other people applying that are just all willing to help each other out. And it's just really nice to see a community of people, because it's also nice when you guys are waiting together for application, waves and stuff like that. So I recommend joining those groups. One thing I do recommend though, before you apply, which could be you could do this a day before, you could do this an hour before you fill out your application. You don't need to do it way in advance, but something I recommend doing is filling out what you want, what you need for your application on a separate document before you actually go and fill out your document. And this is why. So for 2 reasons. Number one, the first, there's 2 things that are required in your application besides your grades and your name and your address in school and stuff like that. What's required is your work experience and the roles you're interested in. So for work experience, the reason why I recommend filling it out ahead of time is because number one, you want to figure out which jobs you're going to put down and list. And if you fill it out ahead of time, you can ask alumni on the Facebook groups for feedback. There were so many people who did this, and I highly recommend it. I would not do it for more than I would ask 2 or 3 different people, and that's it. Also, there were some people on the Facebook groups that were offering advice to check resumes when they weren't in the college program yet. That's fine. You're more than welcome to have just other people check it too, but make sure you have someone who actually got into the DCP also check your work experience, because they're going to know it a little bit more. They're going to have a better sense of what works. So yeah. So the main things that I found work well for when you fill out your work experience is, first of all, using keywords, which I know everyone says, and I do think that it works. I do think it helps. So using keywords that Disney looks for. And then also keeping the work experience short. So that being said, you can still have 5 different work experiences, which I put 5. But for each one, you want to put 3 or 4 bullets. That's it. So basically what you want to do when you're filling out the bullet points underneath the work experience for each job, your responsibilities and stuff like that, make sure that it's all uniform. So if it's going to be long sentences, make them all long sentences. If they're going to be phrases, make them all phrases. They need to match, because otherwise the computer system that it goes through gets confused. From what I know of, Disney is using a similar computer system to what other companies use to screen applications before an actual person looks at it. And the number one thing that they look at is that it's uniform and that there's keywords to it. So if you guys want to see another video where I actually format one of my work experiences to fit what I would put on the website, let me know and I can like show you guys what I did and what worked for me. But very much make sure that you're like everything is in the same tense, everything is in the same length, because all that matters. And then make sure that's like 3 to 4 bullet points max for each work experience. Also, keep in mind that work experience does not mean job. It does not have to be a job. It can be volunteer work and it can be clubs. I put school clubs, like I put college clubs as some of my experiences too, because they have different leadership roles that I can show. But yeah, and then for keywords, basically just look at the roles that you're applying to. On the DCP website, they will have like different words that talk about like what your responsibilities are for those roles. So if you can use those words that they use in your application, that'll help like match it up with the system. So like if it says like on the website, it says assisting and like stuff like that, or courteous or guest services or stuff like that you want to put, you can change up and stuff like that. That being said, if you don't call your customers guests, like don't just put guests just for no reason. Make sure you're not at the end of the day lying on your resume. Like that's not the goal. It's just to like help you match what would the system is looking for in terms of keywords that'll help them find it easily and help them match it up with roles that they want to fill. So like you can change word from helping to assisting because that fits with what the role description is. But if you don't actually do that in your real life, like don't lie. So definitely it helps to look at keywords, and then it helps to put like the 4 keys of Disney. So that's, I think, safety and courtesy. Safety is a big one. So if you can put safety in there, I think that definitely helps. But yeah, so that's basically it. And then I would, once you type that all up, show that to an alumni or two and get feedback. This also just helps because when you're like, I was more nervous sending my work experience to an alumni than I was for putting it in the application, because I was like, oh my God, like a real person's gonna read this and look at it and blah, blah. And that made me like double check it a lot more than if I was just putting it in a website. So I think that's the number one reason why you should definitely send it to someone before you apply. It's just because the scare of like showing it to someone alone makes you prep better. And then the other thing that I put down in a document ahead of time before applying was my roles. So there was someone on the DCP Facebook group that posted like a large document of every single role at both Disney World and Disneyland. And basically what I did was I downloaded the document and then I looked up each role on the DCP website and I decided, would I want this? Would I not want this? If I didn't want it, I would put no interest and moved on. If I wanted it, then I would put either high interest, somewhat interest, like the different levels of interest, and then keep going. And the reason why this is like something that I recommend you do ahead of time and not just on the website is because I don't know about you guys, but for me, when the applications dropped, like I got so excited. I wanted to fill it out right away. And in that moment when you have the chance to actually fill out the application, like sometimes it feels like you're so excited at the idea of working at Disney that you do like anything. Like in that moment, you'd be like willing to do anything whatsoever to get into the college program and nothing else matters. And so you'll fill out like roles that like normally you would not want to do. And I think like that's something that like easily happens to us when we're excited, which is where we're like, we want to seem more accommodating because we're like, yes, Disney, like I want to show you that I'm committed. So I will literally put high interest for every single thing because that's how much I love you. And then you get housekeeping and then you're like, well, never mind. This is awkward now. Goodbye, Disney. Goodbye. I cannot tell you how many people there are on the Disney College Program Facebook page that got roles that they put like low interest in, and then they were very disappointed. So that's why it's a good idea to just put the roles you truly want and not like the roles that you think will just get you into the program or the roles that you think will make you like look good. So like that's why I just did it ahead of time when I sat down and researched all of them individually and made sure like, yes, like I want to do this role no matter what, like I would be fine doing this role. And if I didn't, I put no interest. And I think that if I was just filling it out on the spot, I would have probably like settled a lot more just because I would be too excited and like too eager to get in. And I think that that's just like a recipe for disaster. So I think it helps to definitely fill it out ahead of time. But if you're not as like, I don't know, extra as me, you don't have to do that. But yeah, that being said, when you do fill out your roles, make sure that you are only putting interest in roles you will absolutely be okay with doing, because just because you put low interest doesn't mean you won't get it. Like, putting low interest in a role with the hopes of not getting it doesn't make any sense, because low interest is still interest, and there's still a chance you would get it. And if it's a role that you would get and then not go to the DCP for, don't put it. Like, that should be like the lowest of standards, to not put a role, because I cannot tell you how many people there were on the Facebook group that got their low interest roles and then asked if there was a way to switch out of their role into another role. And they were always told no. Like, it's not some sort of loophole where you like put high interest in everything and then can just like pick and choose which one you get. So definitely don't put low interest. Like, just put no interest if you don't want to roll. Like, if you will not go to the college program, if you get that role, don't put interest in it. Like, I, for example, did not want anything to do with food. It's not like a bad idea for me. Like, I did not want to handle that. So I put no interest in any of the quick service food roles. And I still got in. So do not put stuff just to look accommodating. Like, they don't care about that. That being said, obviously, if you put more roles, it betters your chances, but there's also some people who put like 2 or 3 roles and still got in. So it's really, there's no way of knowing, and I wouldn't just put roles just to put roles down. So make sure that you put the roles you actually want to do, and the ones that you actually want to do should be high interest, just because I do think that looks better. Like, I think it's kind of weird if you apply and just put like one role and then put low interest. Like, that's not gonna work. But yeah, so that's my tips on the roles. So once you put all that stuff into the application, you basically just wait to get an email back about a WBI, which is the web-based interview. This could come from anywhere to half an hour after you filled out to like months after. And that basically is basically if you don't get it the same day after that, it's called being stuck and applied, and you don't know how long you could be stuck there. So I think what happens when you're stuck is basically that's when a recruiter with an actual human looks at it and then determines if you move on or not. That being said, like, there are people who were stuck and applied for months and then got in, as opposed to people who moved on to the WBI and then failed that and then didn't get in. So you don't really know, everyone's process for the DCP is different. Everyone takes a different amount of time to get from step to step. Do not lose hope, because there are very many different stories as to how it works. But yeah, so basically once you get your email for the WBI, if you get it, because you could also not get it, you could get NLIC'd, which if that happens, you can always apply again. I think they now extended it to up to a year after graduation from college, which is a lot of time, because then you get 2 more tries even after you graduate to apply, which is great. So don't lose hope, because I know people that are going with me to the DCP now that applied 6 times in a row and got in. Good for you. That's dedication, and I think that looks good to Disney as well. So yeah, so I got my WBI email the same day. And basically what I did when I was going to take it, because I was super nervous, and something that I recommend too, if you're someone who gets easily distracted like me, which it's a problem, but it's fine, is I went to my room, I closed my door, I texted my roommates that I was going to be busy and not to bother me. I put on noise-canceling headphones without listening to anything. And then I sat down with a pencil and paper to write down anything I needed, and then I took the WBI. So the WBI was the one I was most nervous for, actually. I was more nervous for taking that than the application, because there was no way of prepping for it ahead of time. And basically the main tips that I found work was, first of all, is to just put strongly disagree or strongly agree for the most part. You don't want to use more than 2 or 3 neutrals, because after a while, putting neutral just doesn't look good. And there will be different statements I am always on time to work and stuff like that. And then you put strongly agree, strongly disagree, stuff like that. And there's different sections, and it is a timed test. And the reason why it's timed is because they want you to answer honestly. So you don't have time to think about it. You just answer it. And when I took it, it felt very automatic. I was just clicking and clicking and clicking, and I wasn't even thinking, which was really nice. I stressed out so much, and then when I actually took it, I was oh wow, this is fine. But yeah, so the first thing is definitely to make sure that you have strong opinions, because just like any company, Disney wants people with strong opinions. They don't want people who are just about everything. So neutral is basically just going so don't do that. Treat it like an in-person interview. If you were talking to a Disney recruiter in person and they said, you are always to work on time? Like, are you always to work on time? And you go, like, I wouldn't hire you. So just be careful of that and treat it like you're actually talking to someone. Like, that's another thing is like, if it's that question, for example, of I'm always on time to work, like, you should be putting strongly agree to stuff like that. Like, that should not be a sometimes or maybe once in a while when I feel like no, like, that's not gonna work. And if that's something that you feel that like you're not always on time to work, or like there's like a lot of questions that you just like don't match up with, then it might actually be that like the Disney college program is just not like a fit for you. So just keep that in mind. But that being said, like, treat it as if you're talking to someone in person. Because if you were talking to a recruiter in person, you would not be like, oh, well, sometimes I'm not on time because, you know, like my car gets a flat, or I don't, like, my alarm doesn't go off and stuff like that. Like, they don't want to hear that. They just want to hear yes or no kind of thing. So yeah. And then the other thing is that they will put the same questions over and over again to kind of try to trip you up. And I don't mean it in a way where they're trying to like trick you and get you, but they want to make sure that you're answering honestly. And if your answers don't match up, that's like kind of like a red flag. Yeah, so there could be like two different questions where like one's like, I love working individually, and the other one's like, I prefer working with a team. So just make sure that your answers are matching up for stuff like that, and that like you're just honest about what you prefer in terms of the working environment. And if it's a fit with Disney, you find out right away. And if it's not, then you get a chance to apply again later on. Something I forgot when I was doing the test was that you find out as soon as you press submit. Because I was like taking it and I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'll get an email later today and I'll find out. So this is like no stress. Like, I don't get to find out right away. And I pressed submit and it told me right away. And I was like, oh my God, like, oh, that was fast. Because you expect to wait after waiting for the application, but no waiting at all. And then, so if you pass your WBI, then you schedule your phone interview. So I scheduled my phone interview for later that week so that I would have time to like just relax a little bit and then to prep as well. So the number one thing that I recommend you do is not stress. Like, it's so easy to stress about this. It's so easy to watch like hundreds of phone interviews on YouTube and then like fill out every single answer to every single question that you find on Facebook and stuff like that. Like, you need to like make sure that you're not over prepping. Like, that's the number one tip that once I found that tip, I was like, oh wait, like I need to make sure that that's not what I do too. Because there's a lot of people that fall into the trap of over prepping and then they like sound like robots when they actually take the phone interview, because they just like give perfectly rehearsed answers about every single thing they've ever done and know every single question you're going to ask because they read a document about it ahead of time. So like, just make sure that you don't do that. You want to sound natural when you're on the phone. I personally watched a few phone interviews on YouTube first because it just helped me to listen to like how people talked and like see the different kinds of personalities that applied and stuff like that. Because like there's a lot of people out there that like come off as a lot like more cheery and brighter and like positive compared to me. And I kind of got scared of the idea that I wouldn't get in because of that. But like there really is like a range of different personalities that Disney takes. So do not worry and do not try to like sound like that kind of person if that's not you. Like, don't sound fake, they can tell. Do smile though. Smiling helps. Like, I like looked in a mirror half the time just to, like, make sure I was still smiling during the phone call, because like you can kind of like tell when you're talking to someone if they're smiling or not. And like that's something that I always forget to do is smile. Like right now when I'm talking to you guys, like half the time I wasn't smiling, and it's not because I'm not happy, it's just because like I just don't naturally like do it when I talk. Like, I don't know. So I would watch like a few YouTube interviews, but I wouldn't go crazy with that. And then there's a document on Google where it says like possible DCP phone interviews, and there's like 140 something questions on there. What I recommend for that is that you read a question and look at it, and if you can think of an answer within like 30 seconds, you're good, move on. If you see a question and you look at it and you're like, oh shoot, I don't know what I would say if I got this question, take that question, write it down somewhere, come back to it later. And then just do that for all the questions that apply to the roles you're applying to. And then take the questions that you weren't sure about and write down your answers, or like think about your answer and then write down bullet points to help you answer it. And like for those questions, practice answering them. Because like basically you just don't want to get thrown off or thrown a curveball at the last minute. So I do think it's good to like prep the questions that you really don't know. But if there's questions that you're like, oh, I can answer this, don't write down your answer ahead of time to like read off of. Like that's just like, first of all, that's like really time consuming. And second of all, like that's just not like you're not going to sound natural. And it's just like it's not real. I don't know. It's not as genuine. So I wouldn't do that unless you really needed to. Unless you like really were stressed about the idea of it. But yeah. So I wrote down like the answer to like 3 or 4 questions out of like 140 something, because there's only a few that I was like, oh shoot, like I don't know what I'd put for this. So yeah. And then the other thing I wrote down ahead of time was I put my preferences for my roles. Like I made a list of my top roles for Disney World and Disneyland, just so I wouldn't like off the top of my head worry about what my preferences were or like forget which roles I wanted or something like that. So I had a document up that had that. And then I also had a little folder that had screenshots of every single role, like responsibilities that I had applied to. And I had my own application up somewhere too, just so I could see like what I put there, like in my application, to make sure that like I was talking about the right jobs. Like if I put a club in my work experience, but I was talking about one that I didn't put in my application, like that'd be a little weird. So just make sure that like you're on the same page as them, literally. So I put the link to my phone interview down below if you want to watch that. I talk about it in that video as well as to like what I prepped ahead of time a little bit more. And then I also had like a pencil and paper to just write everything down. Just make sure you smile a lot and be confident and like trust yourself, and you got it. It really isn't like scary. You really do, once you get the phone call, feel like you're talking to a friend. Like I don't know about other people's experience, but Tanner was just so nice to me, and I just was like very happy the whole time with the whole experience. And there are people that like felt like they had awful phone interviews and they got in, and then there are people that like had great phone interviews and didn't get in. So there's like no real way of like being sure like how you feel from an interview, if that like means anything or not. So like don't stress about it once you're done. But yeah, and oh, that's another thing. Do not focus on the length of your phone interview. I've seen so many comments of people being like, my phone interview was only 10 minutes, or like it was only 6 minutes, like I'm not gonna get in, and they'll still get in. And then there will be people whose phone interview will be like 40 minutes and they won't get in. And it just really depends on the style of the recruiter, like because some of them are trying to like go like through interviews, just like get home, or they're behind schedule or something like that, or they know what they're looking for, and like maybe they already know that like you fit the role, so they're just trying to like get through it. So like some people rush like you through a lot more by like asking you less questions, whereas some are just like they want to be thorough and want to take their time. And I think it's just honestly like the difference between like type A and type B people is what I feel like, and based on like who's interviewing you. So it's not like a good or a bad sign based on the length of your phone interview. So don't worry about that. But yeah, and if there's any questions that you're unsure of, you can always practice with a friend too, like answering them. But yeah, something that you have to keep in mind is that there might be random questions that you've never seen before. It happens. They ask like stuff on the spot too that like sometimes the recruiters just like thought of on their own that's not on the sheet. So don't worry about it. But yeah, be prepared to talk about your top role choices, and also be prepared to talk about the one question I've seen come up in like every single interview is safety, and how you like incorporate safety into like your job experiences. So make sure that you can think of at least like one of the roles you've done and how like you guys made sure that like safety was part of it and how it was like important, because that's very much something that's important to like every single role at the park. And it's something that Disney really, really looks at because it's one of their keys. So yeah, so definitely prepare for that. But besides that, like just relax. Like it's really not that bad. Something I did ahead of time, which you can see in the video, is I was watching a Disney movie while waiting for the phone call, just because I was trying to relax. Because I was so nervous, you guys. Like so nervous. Like 24 hours in advance, I was like sitting by the phone and I was like, what if they call today? And like, what? No, they're not gonna call today. Like what? But but yeah, so definitely just relax, like take deep breaths, and just be yourself, and that's about it. So really specific, really quick, just for those of you who want Disneyland specifically. So I applied to both parks. I applied to Disney World and Disneyland when I filled out my preferences, my application, and everything like that, just because like my Disneyland was my top choice, but I figured that like I would still go even if I got Disney World, and like you have a better chance of getting into Disney World than you do at Disneyland, just because they have more slots at Disney World. But that being said, it's like not impossible to get into Disneyland either. So basically what I did was I filled out preferences for both. And then in my interview, I basically mentioned why I prefer Disneyland over Disney World and why I would want to work there more. I did say that like I would be more than happy to work at either of the resorts, but I did stress that like Disneyland fit more with what I wanted to do next and with my goals, and the parks fit more with like what I was looking for out of the program. And that definitely, I think, helped the interviewer determine whether or not like I was a good fit for Disneyland as opposed to Disney World. And like everyone that I've talked to that's gotten into Disneyland has like, they've done something similar where they're like recruiter or them, like one of them brings it up in the phone interview and they talk about it. So don't be afraid to say which park you want more. Like, it doesn't like lessen your chances. It doesn't make you look bad. Like, they want to hear what your preferences are. Just like they want to hear like which roles you prefer. Like, if you really, really want character attendant and it doesn't come up in your phone interview, mention it. Like, bring it up yourself and be like, hey, like, I know you didn't ask me any questions about character attendant, but I just want to say that I'd really like to be considered for that role as well, because that one, like, I have a lot of interest in doing it because of blah, 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 like these reasons, and it would fit with me because of my past work experience doing blah, blah, blah. And like, if you say that stuff, like, it still makes like a good impression. Like, as long as you say everything really politely, they're not gonna like mark you off for that. It's gonna help them decide, because they're trying to help you, and like essentially what they're doing is trying to find which role fits you. Like, yes, it's possible to get NLIC'd after a phone interview, but for the most part, the goal isn't to like decide if you're getting into the program or not. It's usually to decide what role fits you. So like, help them do that. Like, it's okay to say if you really want to roll or not. That's another thing. If you fill out the application and there was like one of the roles that you put like low interest for, and then you change your mind and you're like, actually, I want to put this as high interest, or actually, I don't want this as an interest at all. Is there a way to remove it? You can tell them that within reason. Don't like come and be like, these 5 roles are no longer of interest to me, take them out. Like, no, that's not okay. You're not going to get in if you do that, because then it's going to seem like you tried to fake interest just to get past the application round. But if there's like 1 or 2 roles that like you either want to switch up what your interest level is, or like stress that you really want them, tell your recruiter before it's too late, because they want to know that stuff. They want to help you get the best possible role. Disney, at the end of the day, is just trying to put people that would fit their roles, fit their company's vision at their parks. Like, they're there to help you. They're not there to like trick you or punish you or try to like put you in a role that you would hate doing. Like, the assumption is that if you put low interest in a role, you're still interested, so they're going to put you in that role. But don't be afraid to like say that you change your mind, because sometimes time passes between the application and the phone interview, and like, let the recruiter know and they'll see what they can do. Like, as long as you're polite and like courteous about everything, it should be fine. But yeah, so that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I wish you all good luck with applications.